said, Ron.
Okay.
I said, it's not his key.
All right, let's get started. All right, I think we're good enough. I think we're as good as we're going to get tonight. We were having problems with Facebook the last couple of weeks. I thought it might have been a computer problem. We reloaded our computers, and Facebook is still giving us a hard time. So anybody who's maybe watching, I think we're online at some point. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not, but if it's unbearable, please try back tomorrow, and I'll have the video up. But good evening and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club meeting for Thursday, February 20th. My name is John Miller. I'm the club president for the 2024-2025 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957. It exists to promote the arts, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit arundelcameraclub.org. And whether you're joining us live or catching a recorded session, if you are local to Anne Arundel County, Maryland, we invite you to meet with us Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. at the Severna Park Baptist Church in Severna Park, Maryland. And do we have any announcements tonight? Announcements. Yes, Cheryl.
I have books here. They're magazines that one of our guest speakers gave us to review, have, enjoy, and share.
Perfect.
And I'd like people to go to them tonight.
Okay, Cheryl's got some books. Please take some books for her. Anybody else? Yes, Ron.
Just a reminder, I'm going to send out once a week a reminder about the 10 PA Odyssey of Light, which will be live this year. It will be on a Sunday about April.
Yeah.
And members have a discount. Normally it's $70, it's $50. And plus you get a freebie from one of the sponsors.
Perfect.
So it's a good deal. Two great speakers, but I just like the fact it's in person. It'd be really fun to get everybody there.
Good. What Ron was saying is the MPA is going to start sending out some emails about the Odyssey of Light conference. And if you are a member with us at the Arundel Camera Club, then you get it for $50 instead of $70. As we always say, membership is free for the club. You only need to pay if you're paying for contests. And if anybody online is watching, go to our website and apply to be a member. And you don't have to pay anything. And that also helps us with figuring out what you're looking for and what we can do to tailor our programming for you. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, let me introduce Christine to talk about the schedule and introduce tonight's speaker.
Good evening. Let's see. Next week we have our print contest for geometric photography. On March 6th, we have a program by Quinn Jacobson on Sun Mountain. He is a alternative photographer who practices many different things, including tintypes and carbon print, all sorts of alternative processes. And it's about his upcoming book that's coming out and the way he's made and photographed it from his time living in Colorado. And then on March 13th is our next digital contest with a theme of open. On March 20th, John will be giving us a program on the history of photography. He will also be making a tintype live demonstration while we're here. March 23rd is our field trip to Washington, D.C. for the cherry blossoms. March 27th is the following print contest with the theme of open. And then April 4th will be a program by Charles Goldblum on editing Milky Way RAW files in Lightroom Adobe Camera Raw. And tonight we have Ryan Maurer joining us again. He is a naturalist from Southwest Pennsylvania, and for the last 10 years he has focused on photographing caves throughout the United States and bringing the stories of the underground world to light. He graduated from West Virginia University with degrees in aerospace and mechanical engineering and is now working as a software developer for Mindera Software. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello. Everybody can hear me and see me, I assume?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Because all I see is John's profile picture looking back at me from my screen. So I'll take, Hope says hi. So I'll take your word for it. I'm going to start sharing my screen here so we can get into today's talk. Okay. I assume that now you see, I've never actually had to zoom in a PowerPoint before. That's why I'm asking. So I'm assuming that you see nothing but the intro slide now.
With you at the top of the screen.
With me at the top of the screen. Awesome. Okay.
I'm gonna see.
That's a
Ryan,
good
I'm gonna
note.
see
It means
if-
I won't pick my nose thinking you're not looking.
Ryan, I'm going to see if I can't make your screen full size. I'm not very good with any of this stuff.
Oh, hold on a second. Wait a minute. Which one are you sharing? Okay. Let me know when I can start into it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Video settings, share. There used to be a thing where you had, you could get rid of the people faces, but I don't really know where to get rid of them.
Is it on the view?
Is it on the view? Yeah. Like,
Where's the view?
Keep going right
Up.
there.
See if there's an option there.
You guys are so smart.
I don't think you want to immerse it.
Uh-oh.
We're not facing you, John.
Participants there, you might be able to choose from participant.
Hide self view? No, that isn't it. Well, that's okay. How about full screen? There we go. And we'll just move Ryan down here, and we'll try not to forget about him. You're full screen, Ryan.
Awesome. Sounds good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about an introduction to cave photography. After my previous talk, I hung back with several folks in the club and mentioned that in my backyard where I live in central Pennsylvania, there's a cave that offers a wonderful opportunity to try out cave photography because it's a ex-commercial show cave. So it's got all the infrastructure of a show cave, such as handrails and trails, but it has no lights in it. So it's a good opportunity to be able to kind of try out the process of cave photography without really having to go caving. It's safer for you, safer for your gear. And this seemed to have some interest. So I put together a presentation on what this would be like if we went through and did it. There is no date set yet. That would be primarily up to the folks that would be interested. I'm very flexible for the most part over the entirety of the summer. That is definitely the time that you would want to go. And the limit, I don't have it written down here, but the limit would be usually about 11 people. 11, 12 people. That's usually what we try to limit group sizes to in the cave. So real quick, just some logistics, just to give you an idea of where we're talking about. This is in my backyard. I live in Lewistown, which is in the exact middle of Pennsylvania. If you took Pennsylvania and you drew an X from corner to corner, where that X intersects is where Lewistown is. It's a small town by the standards of the DC metro area, but it does have all the normal grocery options. It's got the entire spectrum of restaurants, from upscale ones to ones that you would definitely want to avoid. And it's got ample lodging across the entire spectrum as well. There's a hotel here. Reed's Gap State Park has primitive camping similar to what you would have at Spruce Knob. And then there's other campgrounds that offer things like cabins and tiny homes and, whichever you would desire. Now, what this map doesn't show, I went too far. What this map doesn't show is that what it's pointing to is this red circle in the middle. And that is the Kishakokilis Valley. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that because I pronounced the two L's as a single sound rather than the long L. But basically, it's that big valley that's right in the middle of Pennsylvania, and it's a pretty wonderful place to spend time in for a bunch of different reasons. Most of the central Kish Valley is all limestone, so if you're somebody like me and you like caves, you're in luck because there's a few hundred of them in there. including some really, really amazing ones. It is also primarily Amish country, which means it is very dark. It is dark enough that we have been able to see the aurora several times. On a new moon night, it is very dark here. It is not as dark as Spruce Knob or Cherry Springs, but it gets pretty close. I will have to tune in for your future presentation about how to process Milky Way shots, because I'm really not good at it. But we were able to see Comet Atlas here for a few nights. This is the only light pollution that we have. It's really annoying. It is from a single billboard on the highway. So it's a very dark sky so long as you don't look at the town of Milroy. So there are ample things to do in the valley besides visit a cave. It's a wonderful place to spend some time at. In the middle of that, though, is Alexander Caverns, which is the place that I would be taking y'all to. It is an ex-commercial show cave. It is owned by an Amish family, which is why I do not have a photo of the entrance to show you, because they do not allow photography on the surface. The entrance is the hardest part of the entire cave. It's a series of about 50 stairs. The stairs are relatively narrow. I got some pictures of them. But it retains all the commercial trails and handrails, but it has no lights. And also, just as importantly, it has no bathroom. So that's a logistical thing to think about and consider that, we could talk about as we get closer. But basically, when you come into the entrance, you look down this big staircase. There are handrails for most of it. They are deceptively steep, I will say that. Hope and I, she doesn't know that I'm volunteering her yet, but Hope and I are willing to carry people's gear and camera bags and stuff up and down the stairs, because
It sucks.
I'm always winded when I come up out of the staircase. But they come down this first flight of stairs and around a corner, and then you are walking on nice flat floored paths to give you an idea of how pleasant it is to go through the cave. Hope is in this picture here. She has tennis shoes on. And if you've ever seen Hope and her coordination skills, how easily she trips over things, she is carrying my 4x5 monorail through the cave here. And she doesn't have it in a bag. So it's flat enough and easy enough that I trust her to go through and do that. And once you get into the cave, it's really nice. It's really decorated. There's all kinds of things that you would normally see in a cave. There are two basic parts to the cave. There is a dry section of the cave, and then there is a wet section of the cave. And the dry section of the cave is where we would spend most of our time. It's right in the entrance area. It's very easy to get to. One thing that is in this picture that you will probably not see in the summer, if you look over on the left wall, I'll bring up this thing there's a laser pointer. That's cool. If you look over here on the wall, these little dark brown splotches, those are bats. The cave has a relatively healthy population of about 50 of them in the winter. It's not a really good hibernation spot for bats, but it holds its own. You probably will not see those in the summer. Usually in the summer, there's none in the cave. But beyond the dry section of the cave is the wet section. And you'll be able to see the wet section, and we could probably go through it and give everybody a tour. They have big boats that are in the cave still, so we can put people in boats and paddle our way through the cave. But we will not be doing photography in this section. And I'll talk about that near the end. So a little bit about cave photography and what you would need for it, what you would want to bring. My apologies for going from a very dark to a very bright slide. A SLR style camera is preferred. This is kind of a catch-all term. Basically, any camera that has the ability to control, full manual, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, anything like that is preferred. Full frame, or I'm sorry, not full frame. Mirrorless cameras are perfectly acceptable because you won't be going and getting super dirty or really dirty at all in this cave. I have not personally upgraded to a full frame camera yet because I am still very worried about changing lenses in a cave. If you saw my gear and what it looks like, it has made other photographers cry. That's not an exaggeration. I've actually seen people get choked up seeing how dirty my camera gets sometimes. But that's not what happens here. This is a very friendly place. You would want to use lenses that kind of go anywhere from ultra wide to a moderately long portrait. If you're using a crop sensor camera, 10 to 50 millimeters is pretty good. If you're using full frame, that's roughly 16 to 100. And if you're shooting medium or large format film, then that usually is in the 75 to 180 millimeter range. If you want to use macro lenses, generally speaking, I have a 100 millimeter macro lens. That's always been good enough for me. I have the 100 millimeter f2.8L that Canon makes. And you'll be photographing with one of two methods, either light painting or with flashes. Either way, if you don't have a synchronization device for those lights, then you will want a tripod because you will be having very long exposures. If you are a film shooter, the recommendation that I would give you is that if you're shooting 35 millimeter or up, that you would want to shoot anywhere from 100 to 400 speed film. If you are shooting large format, then 400 is perfectly fine from a grain perspective. I do shoot slow speed slide film sometimes in caves, but I primarily shoot them for formations and detail shots. It's really hard to fully describe how much light you need to produce to take a picture in a cave. The caves are very dark. We'll talk about that a bit more here in a bit, but take the amount of light that you think you would need and multiply that by about 5. That's usually what's necessary. And if you are shooting film, if you're familiar with how to manipulate film, don't think you're going to get away by putting some nice 400 speed film in there and pushing it to 1600. That doesn't really work in a cave, mostly because your shadows in your pictures are going to be absolute darkness. So unless you are very careful and specific with your lighting setup, you will never have a minimum light value in the picture. So these are very high contrast scenes. Oftentimes the highlights are 12 to 30 stops higher than the dark areas. So you got to pick and choose what you're going to keep and get rid of in the picture as far as that's concerned. And with film, especially negative film, that becomes problematic. I started shooting black and white film frequently underground about 3 years ago, and I print in my darkroom, and I still have not quite gotten the hang of exactly where the shadows clip in the negative when I print. It's just really tricky and very high contrast. So if you're shooting film, push processing is really not recommended. You'll want to shoot it normal, or you'll want to even pull it slightly if that's an option. Lighting. So you got a few options for lighting. Most folks, I believe, are familiar with flashes and strobes, the digital kind that you can synchronize with your camera. Those are perfectly adequate for 99% of cave photography. The photo on the right there, that was shot with a flash that I bounced off of an umbrella back down onto the floor. If you need more light for some reason, then flash bulbs are an option. They don't make them anymore, but I have 16,000 of them in my stockpile, so I'm perfectly happy to bring some and share them. They are not made anymore, so consider, kicking maybe a donation my way to offset the cost of that, because once they're gone, they're gone. But they are extremely bright. They often can put out anywhere from 5 to 40 stops of light more than your average flash. They are very impressive when they go off, especially in a cave. They burn just long enough that you can actually see the image in 3 dimensions. It's a really, really fun technology to use. And I have flash guns for those. I have things that'll set them off, and I have things that will set them off in sync with your camera. So you can shoot and balance flashes and flash bulbs at the same time. The last option is LED lights. I do not have any LED lights. I do not do light painting, which some photographers do in caves. Mostly because I have never put down the money for good LED lights that are color balanced with each other. It's just not the type of photography that I do. So you are more than welcome to bring LED light panels if you have any. You will very quickly find out that if there is any slight mismatch in color balance, that you will never correct it in post-processing. It's just because of the way that lights fall through a cave. So those are the 3 basic options. I can provide the first 2 to some degree. I have half a dozen flashes that I use in caves. Again, as we'll talk about in a second, you don't really have to worry about getting any of your stuff dirty or damaged in this cave. It's just too friendly for that. So I wouldn't worry about bringing your nice flashes or your nice tripods. But we will talk a little bit about protecting it. You can get away with normal photo packs. You don't have to put them in anything particularly waterproof or dirt resistant or impact resistant. The cave has large, open, flat areas that used to be concrete or gravel. You can bring a garbage bag to put them down if you want. This photo that I included, Hope and I have been working on a project to reassemble broken formations that are in the cave. And so when we go and we do that, we put out drop cloths and we set all the pieces out and we try to find out which ones fit with each other. So this is the kind of area and space that you'll be working in, right? You can put out all of your gear, you can lay it out on the ground, and you don't have to worry about it getting dirty or wet. Helmets are not required for the dry cave. They are strongly recommended. There is one spot in the dry cave where the ceiling is legitimately low enough that a tall person could hit their head. The biggest issue would be somebody slipping and falling because the ground is wet. So I would recommend it. I can get some extra helmets, but really any kind of hard hat would work. If you have a construction hard hat, that works. For light, a helmet mounted or a head mounted lamp is definitely preferred. You want both hands free while you're working. And having that on your head is a good idea. Do not, I'm sure some people might be thinking about this, do not take a little mag light and try to hold it in your mouth. That does not work. And after being a commercial cave guide for several years, I can tell you that what happens when somebody slips and falls and they have a light in their mouth, it's not pretty. And I do not want to have to do that rescue. So just handheld or preferably on your head. The cave is 100% relative humidity, and it is roughly 52 degrees. For you as a human being, this is not a big problem. If you wear layers, you'll be okay. But if you are overdressed every time you move, you'll start to sweat because that's what 100% humidity does. But for your cameras, different story. 100% humidity is a problem for optics sometimes. In the summer, this is not much of an issue because it's very warm outside, so your gear will be warm before you go into the cave, and then once you're in the cave, your gear is already warm. When you come out of the cave, however, you will have a problem because your gear will immediately fog up to the point where there will be internal condensation on every optical element in your lens if you take it out of the bag. I've never had an issue with it. I've never had an issue with electronics having a problem with it. I've never had an issue with film having a problem with it. It's just accepted that when you go from something that is very cold to something that is very warm, you just got to let everything sit for an hour or so for it to come up to temperature. Okay, so you've got the gear. It's protected. You're in the cave, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's totally dark." Right? I want. It's like shooting in a studio, but harder because you don't have nice surfaces to bounce light off of. And everything is irregular. Everything is dark. And I don't mean like dark like there's no light. I mean like the walls are dark brown, so they just suck up light. If you have a guide number for your flash or your strobe, multiply that guide number by half. Cut it in half. That's usually what ends up happening in a cave. That's why flash bulbs are really helpful because they can kind of work against that. And it can be really complicated, right? Like if you think about it, well, now I have an infinite space to work in. I can put lights anywhere, right? It's not like you're outside and you're looking at a tree or you're looking at a building and the light's kind of determined for you already and everything else. You have full control over this, and that can be kind of overwhelming. So there's a few simple things that you can do to get really good pictures in caves to get started with so you can play around. One is just simply side light. That's bounce. I'm going to move my little laser pointer off. I keep seeing that and wondering what it is. One is simple side lighting. This is the formation that you saw in the previous picture. I bounced a bare flash bulb off of a 32-inch umbrella. It's a perfectly good photograph. It's currently being used as the interleaf for a book that I'm writing. It's, I would be very happy with this under any circumstances. And you can do literally 100 variations of this exact photograph of this exact formation right there. Which is good because then not everybody has to work in the same spot. Y'all can spread out and not get in each other's way. Another option is backlighting. This is definitely where flash bulbs shine. This is an image using a flash bulb and a reflector as backlighting, and you can see it gives real dramatic, high contrast scenes. Many of those formations are small enough that they kind of are translucent, so you can kind of shine the light through them, which is pretty cool. And in this case, I had a flash that was hidden that was lighting up the model from the front, so you can kind of use these different light sources and just play around with it. But when you start to combine these, you start to get really, really cool lighting effects. Like this used one flash bulb and 3 flashes. It used a flash bulb in front of an umbrella off to the side over here, and it gave that nice, beautiful, soft lighting off to the side. It also used a strobe right here to light up some of this foreground. It also used a strobe in the background to light up Hope because she was in the shadow of this formation. So when you start to play around with it, you can really spend a lot of time just in one area seeing what you can do with it. There will be a couple of folks that are familiar with caves and caving that will be there. So if you want to put lights off trail and you don't feel comfortable walking over these uneven surfaces. We're more than happy to go out there and put whatever light you want wherever you want it. That's what we're there to do. One other thing about flash bulbs that I wanted to mention that I really like about them is they burn long enough that you can capture motion. You can, if you have somebody walking through the cave, you can make them streak. And you can't do this with LED lights because the shutter speed's too long. But you can get these really cool motion-based effects with people walking through the scene. It adds a really dynamic element. This was, all things considered, this was a very simple picture that I took. There was a strobe in the foreground that lit up the formations from the side. And then I was holding a flash bulb in my hand with no reflector, just a bare flash bulb. And as I walked through that scene there, I had Hope trip the shutter for me. And it caught that motion, and you can see my face is lit up. That's just with my headlamp. I had it turned down, pointing at me. So these are all very, very simple setups. Once you realize what it is that you're doing logistically, it only takes a few minutes to set these up. And of course, I'll be there to walk anybody through these processes as they would need. And there is a couple of spaces if you wanted to try to do photography that wasn't like on a flat trail. There is one short passage that goes off. You can see the trail off there in the distance, but it gives you, the opportunity to shoot some passage photos that are, they don't look overtly commercial in nature. So a quick other things. You'll want, as I said, wear layers and wear some grippy shoes. You don't need waterproof shoes. You don't need muck boots. Just wear something that has some soles to them, so that way, when you put your foot down, it stays in one spot. There is space there. We'll bring us, some small stoves so we can have coffee, tea in the cave. We can, try to facilitate some group snacks for everybody. The earliest we can be in the cave is 9 a.m., but we have to be out of the cave and off the property by dark. That is one of the rules of the Amish landowners. That's usually not an issue. That gives us several hours to do anything that we want to do. Now, one last thing to talk about before I open up for questions, because I figure most of this will be us, Q&Aing about how this would work, is the wet cave. The wet cave is really cool. I'm not going to lie. It is the most amazing part of the cave. It is probably one of the most amazing places underground that I know of in the eastern United States. It is just spectacular. It is an unbelievable privilege to have this place 20 minutes away from my house. Unfortunately, it is also one of the most difficult places to photograph I have ever worked in. Mostly because there's no solid ground. It is wall-to-wall water. Everybody is in boats. The boats are moving. And if you drop something, well, you're screwed. You're not getting it back. I have worked with flashes before that if they went in the water, they would electrocute people that were in the water. It is just a pain. So we can go through this section, but we are almost certainly not going to be able to do any significant photography in it because of the logistics that are required. It is just really, really hard to do this type of photography. However, where the dry cave intersects with the wet cave, we do have this opportunity here. This is the old dock. Back when the cave was a commercial show cave, there used to be a mooring area there. People could get in and out of the boats. We do have the ability to photograph that section of the cave. We can definitely put somebody out in the water. I have underwater flashes that people can use. So this scene is available to work with. This is the only spot that I think we could do it because everybody can stand on solid ground and do whatever they want to do. And then people could just, sit out in the boats. If you go down below where this picture was taken, you do get a view down the passage. It's a lot of fun to work with. It's also very challenging because, as I said, everything moves. There is a current. So you might notice there's straps hanging off the boats. When I took this picture, we used an anchor. We had somebody drop anchors for these pictures so they wouldn't move. So yeah, this is the opportunity that I'm presenting. This is something that when I talked about it and I seen there was interest, it got me really excited. I think cave photography is one of the most fascinating forms of photography that people can do. It is usually really hard to get people to try it though, because caving is hard. I mean, caving is not easy. Taking your gear through a cave is very hard. It is very risky in most circumstances. Normally, when I take my stuff in a cave, I just assume that basically everything is disposable. I have absolutely destroyed my camera before. It's very infrequent, and it's usually because I drop it down some deep hole. But this cave in particular offers the ability to try all of that and experience all of that. And you'll never get dirty. You'll never get dirty. Your gear will never touch dirt. It is there's no more risk associated to your gear than as if you were walking down the street and somebody bumped into you and you dropped your camera on the sidewalk. The odds are about the same. Actually, it's probably safer in the cave. So I hope that there's enough interest in this that we can make this happen. I've already checked with the landowners. I've checked with the people that manage access to the cave. They're all for it. They're happy to share the cave. And I think we can make this a wonderful, wonderful experience for the folks that show up. So I will open it up to questions. I put this picture in there because it is my favorite photo that I've gotten from the cave. Unfortunately, this is not an option because it is very much in the wet cave, and I had to climb up a 15-foot cliff directly out of the boat to get up to where I was and try not to drop my stuff in the water in the process. But I love the picture, so I included it for the Q&A slide. And with that, I will open it to all of you fine folks for any questions that anybody might have.
Hey, Ryan, what's the date you're thinking about?
So there is no date planned. Again, that's going to be more up to the group as to when they can do it. My only real limits are I cannot do Memorial Day weekend. I cannot do early July, and much of August gets very questionable. But basically all of June is an option. Mid to late July is an option, and parts of September would be an option. My preferred time to do it would be mid to late June. If I'm being honest, that's usually a pretty good time to do it. After part of the summer, the water levels in the cave get really low, and paddling the boats through the cave is really difficult because the water is so low. June is like the best time to be in the cave doing stuff.
Any other questions?
What is the water temperature?
In June, it would be in the 60s probably. Maybe towards the upper 50s. It depends on a bunch of factors. Typically, it's about the same temperature as the cave, which would be mid to low 50s. If it rains really hard right before we go in the cave, the water will rise, and I mean, not dangerously rise, but it will get very warm. And because the water outside is warm. So it can be in the it can be in the 60s then. In the winter, it can be very cold. In the winter, the water can be definitely in the 40s to the upper 30s, and it makes working in there really difficult. You should not have to interact with the water, though, unless you're very clumsy and you fall getting out of the boat.
You mentioned that it used to be a show cave. What show cave and why is it no longer? And what is, and what?
What is a show cave and why is it no longer a show cave?
So a show cave is a cave that has been developed for commercial operations, basically. It's the type of cave when you think of like Carlsbad Caverns or Luray Caverns. It's got trails and lights. It's actually really cool. You can see some of the old infrastructure. Like there's still some old light bulbs in the cave that are like high up in the ceiling that they never got rid of. That's where all the trails and handrails in the cave come from. It stopped being a commercial operation because in the 1950s, the Alexander family sold the property, and the commercial operation, the new owners were not interested in renewing the lease for the commercial operation. So it just no longer worked out for that. And it was actually closed for, I think, like 30 or 40 years. It was closed for a very long time. And then local cavers were able to negotiate access again with the landowner. And that's the access that we currently have now.
What is the maximum water depth in the cage?
The maximum water depth in the cave is, I would say, average year round. I think the deepest spot is maybe 15 to 20 feet. It's usually closer to 6. And in many places, it is much less than that. That's actually why I suggest not going late in the summer, because it can actually get shallow enough that you have to portage the boats through different parts of the cave.
Other questions?
Sorry. I need, like, if I were going to do this, because we are in New Jersey at the time, in the summers, we summer in Jersey. So it's a doable thing for us. But I need, like, a lot of details. And even if I read your thing, it wouldn't give me enough. So where else would I go to find out about, the lighting, things I need to get, like detailed lighting? And I saw your thing on the lenses, but I would do I take my 105? How would I find enough information so I could say, yeah, I can go?
Let me minimize this real quick while continuing to share my screen.
Ryan, something I was thinking about is we could set up a post on Facebook. That way everybody that's interested can kind of ask questions there. That may be a good option as well.
Yes, I would agree with that. I'm looking to see if I can find an online source for this. Aha, I can. Okay. This, if you are ever interested in just like nerding out about everything involving cave photography, this is one of the best. I'm convinced it's one of the best books in existence. It's a very, very good book. If you have literally any question about cave photography and how it works, this book is for you. Even if you're not interested in cave photography, it is a wonderful overall photography book. I cannot recommend it enough. It is I can send the link. I can post it on the Facebook page or wherever I need to send it to. It is available through the National Speleological Society, which is the national caving organization. They have 450 in stock, so don't worry about them running out anytime soon.
Thinking of practical issues, you say there is no bathrooms. Where is the nearest one? Does it take a long time to come out of the cave and find one?
So,
Can I answer this?
It depends on the type of bathroom that you need and what your standards are. Depending on what you need to do, the active stream in the cave is very active. It runs through farm fields. It's not going to be an ecological environmental problem, provided you have that ability to do that. If it is a emergency and you need to wait, unfortunately, that is the one major drawback of this, is that the nearest restroom that you would be able to access would be several minutes down the road. It would not take long to go out to your car. But if you had to go to the restroom, it would be a probably 40-minute round trip deal to go to a nearby gas station. If we are there long enough, however, of course, we could have like a lunch break where folks come outside, warm up, go get lunch, come back. In the summer, we have a lot of leeway because it's daylight for a long period of time. So that is generally workable, but I also do generally tell people that if they're going on a trip into this cave, you should try to not have to go to the bathroom for 4 or 5 hours, if that's a possibility. If it's not, if somebody needs, accommodations, I'm not going to ask you to talk about it right now. But do not hesitate to reach out to me and ask about how to manage it. I promise you, whatever the situation is, I've had to deal with it in a cave, and we can and will make it work. That's not a problem.
Thank you very much. I have little to zero experience with flash photography. So how likely is it that I'm going to get lucky enough to get something that I'd want to keep and show?
You do not have to get lucky. You
Jody said.
If you go in this cave and if you know how to compose an image, you will come out with a photograph that you like. I will promise you that. The nice thing about cave photography is that you have complete control over the situation. Unlike a photo workshop where maybe you have to hope for good weather for a sunrise, or you want the animals to cooperate with you, you don't need to do that here. About the only thing that would keep you from getting a good photograph that you would be happy with is if literally everybody's photo gear just stopped working. Go for it.
No, okay. No. So just in your answer, it's now for me a more obvious question. How do you compose in the dark? Do you use flashlights and lighting to get set your composition and then rely on the flashes to take the picture?
Yes, that is generally what I do. My compositioning that I do is a little bit different because I've done it for a very long time. I'm now at the point where I can kind of just see the picture when I look at a scene. I don't need to set up lights to pre-visualize it to some degree. I can just kind of set it up and do it. But it's, even still, if there's a scene that's particularly complicated or complex, or I'm just not quite sure what's going to happen, then yes, I will definitely have people turn on their headlamps, turn them on nice and bright, go stand over there, go stand somewhere else. In particular let me bring this up here, for the backlighting photos, when I do these backlights, what I usually do is I tell whoever is standing behind the model to turn on their headlamp, turn it on very bright. So that way I can see that they are behind the person. And then I will tell them to literally take the flash and hold it right in front of their headlamp. So the flash does exactly what the headlamp is doing. That's usually how I can compose, and other people can compose. I will warn you though, focusing is easy. Believe it or not, modern digital cameras are amazing with autofocus. Even in a cave, it at least my 5D seems, if there's even the slightest hint of a contrast of a line, it'll lock right onto that. If you're shooting manual focus lenses, or God forbid you're shooting 4x5 film, you will be in my thoughts and prayers. I'm still hit or miss for me, but it is doable. So if that was going to be another question regarding the logistics of focusing.
Hey, Ryan, this is Mike Thomas. What are you looking for in terms of an ideal group size?
Like I said, maximum that we can do is 11. What my suggestion would be is that we would go in, and the entry room, which is this area here, what's called the cathedral room, it's very large. You could put 50 people in there. So the cathedral room, we would probably gather up in there, and I would give just a very basic rudimentary overview of, this is a flash. This is a transmitter, right? You trip the shutter, flash goes off. And then at that point, we can do a number of things. Cave photography is definitely a team thing. It is very difficult to shoot photos on your own. It almost inevitably requires at least 2 people, one person to operate the camera and then one person to help hold lights, or to pose in the picture if you want a person in the picture. So my suggestion would be then that we split up into individual groups that can go throughout this section of the cave and take pictures. It's interesting. It's always interesting asking photographers to break up into groups and work with each other. Sometimes that goes really well. Sometimes it doesn't go very well. I find that if you take a bunch of photographers that have never done cave photography before and tell them to do this, it usually works really well because nobody really knows what to do. So there's nobody, it's unlikely that you get arguments or disagreements. I think the ideal group size for that would be 2 to 3 people per group. I think ideally a good number would be 9 people total, because then you can split up into like 2 groups of 4 or 5. I can take one, Hope can take one. She's, more than competent to lead people through a cave to do photography. She's yelling at me in the background. She says I make her sound like an idiot. She's not an idiot. She has dropped my camera a couple times, but she's not an idiot. With 4 or 5 people in a group, you can set up 2 or 3 cameras, and you can ride flashes where multiple people set up their cameras, and then everybody uses the same lighting setup at the same time. That was a very long-winded answer, and I guess the answer is it kind of depends, but we can do a maximum of 11. 9 is probably best. Any less than 3, actually, there wouldn't be a minimum number. Actually, I could even do this with one person. They would just get a really, really specialized experience.
But I don't know what you want me to do. Oh, sorry. More questions. Hang on.
Yeah, I was wondering how long are the trails through the cave? How long would it take to walk all of the trails?
Once you get down the staircase, I can walk from one end of the cave to the other end, where the trails end at the stream passage in about 4 or 5 minutes. It's 500 or 600 feet long. Actually, one moment here. I can answer your question a little bit better. It's 400 or 500 feet. trails, kind of broken up into 3 rooms, roughly. There's I would say kind of broken up into 3 rooms. Y'all are going to get a sneak peek here now of the book that I'm working on Alexander Caverns, because it has a map of the cave in the book, or at least it should. If I open up the right file, please ignore me for a moment. I'll find it eventually. But yeah, there's a lot of space to spread out. There's a lot of space to kind of walk around and look. The trail system is pretty well set up. The folks that did it knew what they were doing. It was kind of impressive. There it is. All right. Hopefully everybody can see this well enough, all things considered. So this is a map of Alexander Caverns. This little white bar, that's about 100 feet. This section here is the dry cave, and it's blown up twice the size of the rest of it. So this right here, where my mouse is, this is the dry cave, and then this whole blue section here, that's the wet cave. In the dry cave, you have this entrance staircase here. You come down the stairs, and then everything from the bottom of this staircase all the way to where it says boat dock. This is all walking on trails. And those are the 3 main areas: the cathedral room, the Garden of the Gods, and the Hall of Statues. The Bucknell Passage, that's that section I said that you could go through if you wanted to try photography in an area that didn't have a flat floor. And then over here at the boat dock, this is where I said, we could get a photo of the boats in the water, because the 2 areas kind of interact with each other. So I think that answers your question better than me talking for ever.
Anyone else?
Got a question, Christine.
Ryan, can you go back to the photo in your presentation where you guys are playing jigsaw with the cave? Now, you said that you're let me see if I can remember what you said. You're assembling broken cave formations. Obviously, you're not super gluing them back together. What is the end goal of assembling those from what were broken? And what do you do with the pieces afterwards? I mean, what is the end goal to doing something like that?
So this cave experienced significant amounts of vandalism during the time that it was closed in the 1950s. Or from the 1950s through the 1990s. We know for a fact that locals broke into the cave sometime in the 80s, and they took baseball bats through the cave and just destroyed things. We have found pieces of formations hundreds of feet away from each other in the passage. So not only did they destroy them, but they then moved them all through the cave. So what our primary goal is to go through and to try to find as many of the pieces as we can. I'll see. I think I've got a better photo here that, hold on, that's going to open up Photoshop. My apologies. So our goal is primarily to find these pieces that are missing and return them to where they came from, to try to fix or otherwise restore the look of the cave to what it would have looked like earlier on. This is a scene that's right here along the trail. This is only a couple of feet off of the trail. And I'm trying to get it to zoom in, but if you look at these formations where the draperies, these stone curtains come down, you'll notice that they end and they're broken. This formation right here goes all the way down, and it has all the way down to its tip. And then these ones here, they just stop. So this piece that Hope is holding is actually the very end of that curtain right there. We found that on one of the previous trips, and and we've been in the process of trying to repair it. It's a big problem. Let me find where the.
So you're trying to repair. So Ryan, you really are gluing those back together in a sense.
Yes, if it's a big enough problem, we are able to get permission to remove the formation from the cave, and in the basement, in my basement, in my workshop, we'll actually drill holes in the formations and bolt them back together, and use epoxy to glue the formation back together, clean it all up, make it look nice, and then we'll actually go and put it back in the cave where it came from. And then within 2 or 3 years, the natural dripping of water is just enough, usually, to cover up the cracks, to cover up the glue marks, and to make it look kind of like how it always did. If you look in this picture here all the way in the back, this was an early attempt from the 1990s. This is somebody, J.B. welded that formation back together. We do a whole different set of things now, so it doesn't have that gray line. Just like there's a book for cave photography, there is literally a book on how to restore cave formations. It is 850 pages long. Again, any question you'd ever have, it's in there. But generally, if we have to glue it, we got to take it out of the cave because it's 52 degrees, and with the humidity in there, the epoxy just never sets properly in the cave. It's got to be taken out, cleaned with alcohol, and then glued and then returned. It is a process. I don't actually know that will ever be done, because this is a very small amount of the pieces that we found. We found over 500 pieces of formations at this point.
Do we have any other questions right now? I did want you, Ryan, to talk about the book that we posted on Facebook and let people know about it. And you said something about setting up a special link for our club members to order from you.
Yes. Before I go into that, before I go into telling you that you should buy my book, I'm going to tell you that this particular workshop, there's no this cave photography workshop. There's no monetary compensation involved. This is a volunteer thing on my end, and on Hope's end, and with the there will be a local caver that'll go with us. You'll have to pay for your lodging, of course, and food and everything, but don't expect me to turn around and say, okay, this is going to be like some other workshop where it's X number of dollars per person. I like I said, it would be nice if we end up using a bunch of flash bulbs. If a few bucks are kicked back, you can still buy them for like $20 a box off of eBay if you look long enough. So, if you feel like you want to kick something back for using a resource that is not easily replaceable, I'll appreciate it, but it's definitely not expected. I wouldn't offer it if I wasn't willing to do it freely anyways. So I wanted to mention that before I go into my sales pitch for my new book. I did just complete my first, so technically this is not the first book that has my name on it. The first book that has my name on it actually is a book about Alexander Caverns. There's a local author who did a history book on the cave, and I did a bunch of photography for him. But it's not the first book that actually has my name on it. The first book that actually has my name on it is going to be this. This is, oh geez. Sorry, I set my computer to automatically open up all of my photos in Photoshop because of something I was doing recently. This is actually the first one. It's called Caverns in the Clouds. It's a book about a cave in southwestern Pennsylvania. Very near and dear to my heart. Near and dear to Hope's heart as well. She's not here, but am pretty sure that Hope and I are likely to get married at this location. It was a formative part of our relationship. So it's a very special place. And as of February 4th, it is officially going to be Pennsylvania's 125th state park. It's also going to be their first one that's a cave. So Hope and I and a small army of other people have spent the last 10 years researching the cave and photographing the cave and making maps of the cave, doing historical research about it. And this book was produced. And it is now up for pre-orders. It is $65 for the pre-order for the color version of the book. The pre-orders run until April 1st, and then they will be delivered. There's also going to be a book launch event at Laurel Caverns itself, which is largely a commercial show cave as well. The proceeds from the book, I took the terrifying step of self-publishing. So I'm on the hook for all the printing costs, which is what the pre-orders are for. The pre-orders are directly funding the printing of the book. Whatever is left over will be used to print a few extra copies, and then whatever is left over from that, all of the sales revenue is being used to help further the mission of what this book was made for. This book was written so that way the local public and the state of Pennsylvania is aware of what they have in their backyard and what they are currently acquiring. It's meant to be a bridge between two different groups of people that often speak two different languages that are going to have to interact with this location. And this is a location that, if it was destroyed by private interests, would be just an absolute tragedy. It would be an incalculable loss to the local community. It would be a loss to the local environment. I could talk forever about how bad that would be. Likewise, if the state were to acquire it and say, we're going to close it so that way nobody can go in it to try to protect it, that would also be a tragedy for the local community and for the wider community. For many people, this is their very first experience underground. This is their very first introduction into what these places are like. A lot of people have very special memories about this location. So this project is to try to get those two groups of people to be seeing and thinking on the same wavelength as we move into the next phase of this place's life. And that is what this entire pre-order campaign is to do, is to get the funds, to get this printed, to get this in the hands of the people that really, really need to see it. So it is, the pre-orders are available until April 1st. After that, you can continue to order, but the price is going to go up slightly because of just how economies of scale work. I have a flat shipping charge for every individual book, but for the Arundel Camera Club, I worked it out with John and Christine to be able to send them in bulk. So there's only one shipping fee for everybody from the club that wants to get one. I sent a link to Christine via email. I can send it again to the club, more widely. It's the same basic checkout as everything else, except it just when your order goes through, it'll have a tag saying that it's from the Arundel Camera Club, so I know to set it aside and ship it. All the books come signed. There's a little note in there thanking you guys for contributing to this. So I hope it is something that would interest you, and I hope that it's something that you would be interested in purchasing.
Ryan, your book sounds amazing. I have a question. Is this Laurel Caverns the same one that the kids go through? Usually, like I took the Girl Scouts multiple times to Laurel Caverns up there in also Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. Is that the same one?
Yes. And if it was between the years of 2015 and 2019, there is a very, very, very high chance that I was your guide.
That's awesome. I had my first rappelling experience there, and I loved it. It was amazing.
What
Thank
year
you.
was that?
Oh, wow. Geez. I think it must have been 15 or 16 years ago, maybe.
Okay. Slightly before I was there. I started working there in 2015, so 10-ish years ago. But I was the coordinator for the rappelling programs from 2017 to 19. That's the only reason I asked. I did all of the rappelling programs for the last 4
Yeah,
years.
the Cub Scouts were like 2 or 3 years behind there. I'm going to have to pull some pictures out and check it out. That's awesome. Thank you.
If it was not me as if it was before 2015, it wasn't me as your guide, but I know the people that it would have been. If you had their names written down or anything, you'll see pictures of them in this book because they're all part of the history of this place as well.
Any questions? If you could please resend me that link. I don't know, I must have gotten lost in some of our other correspondence, and I will make sure it's posted. Or if you want to post it yourself to the Facebook group, that way we can all see it, and I'm sure you'll get.
Put it on
And
our website and then our newsletter. Yeah,
and Mike says he'll put it on our newsletter and on our website also.
Yeah, absolutely. I will definitely do that. If there are folks that are that would think that there's other audiences for it, there is a standard edition that will be coming out after Memorial Day. It's significantly cheaper. It's $35. It's all in black and white, curated black and white. I'm not just like converting pictures to monochrome. It's actually being calibrated for black and white. But I've looked at both at this point. I've got to say that the color version is spectacular. It's a really, the team of editors and layout people that I've been working with, we've put together a really, really, really good book. And then the color version is very much worth the $65 for the pre-order. So I will definitely send the link along to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation. And we will be in touch with you about this awesome opportunity, and we will let you know how many people are interested in going. Did you have something to say, Mike?
It might be interesting to point out that this is here, Old Bedford Village, which is a site in and of itself. There's a whole bunch of covered bridges. There's a racetrack. There's all kinds of things to do over there. So you could make a weekend of it if people wanted to come do this and then do other stuff.
Oh yeah, no, the area is the Juniata River is right here. It's a top tier trout river. If anybody is a fishing person, there's hiking, there's you name it. There's a little bit of everything. If you're a college football fan, maybe this isn't a good advertisement. Penn State's only 20 minutes north, so State College is right here too. There's more things to do here than you could do in a lifetime. So, and I will say, as far as the link is concerned, as far as buying the book, I just wanted to mention, you don't have to give me like a list of names or anything. Everybody can just go and they can make their own order through the link that I share. And I will know that it is from Arundel Camera Club, and then I'll John and Christine, I'll get in touch with you after April 1st to coordinate shipping and how we want to handle that.
And you might not even have to ship. John and I are up in that area frequently through the summer, so we might be able to stop and pick it up from you.
Well, and especially if shipping was going to go out, it was going to be shipped late May. And if we end up doing the Alexander Caverns workshop in mid to late June, then, could just deliver it in person then too. So But yeah, I look forward to planning this out. It's an exciting thing to do. I look forward to this.
Just let me ask the group, that way you have a number. Who would be interested in going to the cave? Oh, there's at least 9 or 10 people sitting in this room that are interested, and that doesn't include the people who couldn't make it tonight. So we might be able to we'll definitely make something happen.
Awesome. Yeah. And I will, like I said, I'll set the limit I'm going to have to set the limit at 11 people. If there is way more than 11 people, then I could definitely work out more than one trip, like more than one group, like one on a Friday, one on Saturday or something. Because it's owned by the Amish, we cannot go in the cave on Sunday. We can only go in the cave. We can go any other day of the week, but just not Sunday. So it actually makes a great weekend thing, because if you come in on Friday evening and then go in the cave on Saturday and then go see something really cool on Sunday morning before you go home. But yeah, give me a number and make it work.
Ryan, would we have the cave to ourselves? If it's still is it still somewhat of a commercial operation?
No, we would have it. We would have it to ourselves. There's a small chance that we would. Sometimes the landowner or the landowner's family brings the local Amish community into the cave, which is, I don't know when they do it. We don't interact with them much. But the few times that I've been there when they were there, it's never been an issue. They just walk through the cave, look at it, and walk back out. So no, we would have the place completely to ourselves to do whatever we want with until it gets dark.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan, and we appreciate you giving us this awesome opportunity. I think there's a lot of us who really want to take you up on this offer, and we thank you very much, and we will see you all next week for the print contest. Bring your prints in, participate for geometric shapes, and we will see you guys next week. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ryan.